Welcome everyone to visionmixstudios.com and visionrecordingstudios.com, along with our Vision Recording CT YouTube channel. Today I want to do just a quick little video on mastering in Presonus Studio One 2.5 Pro. I talked about this at the end of my last video series along with Johnny Geib over at the Home Studio Trainer. We mixed a song in Presonus Studio One with plugins. Go back and check those out. And I talked about at the end of one of those videos, I'd like to do a quick little mastering video. So I wanted to put this together to kind of show people who are not using Studio One Pro or thinking about purchasing Studio One Pro, how nice the mastering package really is and how it's well integrated with Studio One Pro, the DAW, the recording side of the program. So without further ado, let's take a look. So here's a Studio One session. This is not the same song that I mixed in the other video series with Johnny. This is a different track altogether, but it really doesn't matter. So right now we're in our song file, as you can see, and this is a full band, full kind of a rock pop type of a band. A full drum kit with kick, snare, tom, only one tom mic, overheads and a room mic, tambourine track, a bass track. With guitars, there were, a couple of rhythm guitars, a guitar looping type of a deal, some octaves, a guitar lead. Here's guitar octave and guitar octave 2. Vocals, there was a lead vocal, some doubles, some octaves, a bunch of harmony vocals towards the end of the song, which is pretty cool. And then there were a couple of string tracks, a synth track, and a kind of a violin patch kind of a sound, which is really cool. So this is a pretty full song, basic, rock band, if you will. And I've gotten to the point where it's completely mixed and it's ready to go to mastering. And again, if you want to see how I mixed a song, go back and check out the 3 videos prior. And it'll take you step by step on how I go through and kind of mix a song in my workflow. So anyhow, so now from this point, if you're working on one of your songs and you're ready to now master it. So how do you do that? So what's great about Presonus Studio One is the mastering section, or the mastering package of Studio One Pro is brilliant. It's really well integrated, makes things really, really easy. And I'm going to show you that right now. So the very first thing you do is you come up to, if you're in the song file here and you're ready to go, you got everything mixed, you got all the levels kind of the way you want them. And you're liking the sound, and now you want to master it. So before we actually open up the project page, which is what Studio One calls their mastering section, is called a project page. Here we're in a song, the song file, song page. The project page is the mastering piece of it. But before we get to that, let's just talk a little bit about the levels. And I had to play a little bit of this for you so you can kind of hear it, so you know what we're kind of dealing with. When I mix my stuff on my master fader, you'll notice that I'm pretty much at the end of my mix, I'm ending up at about a -5 to -7, excuse me, -8 dB, to give myself enough headroom in mastering to be able to add some additional compression, maybe some EQ, and limiting to boost up the volumes to a commercial volume level, if you will, which is about a -8 to a -10 RMS level for mastering. So I'll play this back a little bit, kind of give you a verse and a chorus so you can kind of hear it, and pay attention to my output meter here. You'll see we're right around the -6, -7 point. So let's take a quick listen.
Are all but dried up in my bones.
Okay, so as you can see, we're at about a negative 6.4 dB at the highest peaks of the chorus, maybe even a little bit louder than that, probably right around -5, -6, which is right where I want to be, somewhere between -5 and -7. So now we want to master this. So everything is set up the way we want it. Now, one thing I'm going to show you, and what we'll do is, we'll actually skip over that, disregard that. So let's go over to the mastering, the project page. So the first thing you do is come up to Song and Add to Project, New Project, and the name of the song is already there. So there's the name of the song. So we click on that, and now it's going to ask me to set up where do I want this project file to be stored. So you want to go to your hard drive. Here's the title of the song, and we're going to go to the hard drive, and I'm going to put it in the directory that is appropriate for this. So here's the already song. Here's the song file that we're in. So I'm just going to drop it over here. So the song file and the project file are in the same area, same hard drive, same directory. So let's just hit open. Sample rate 44.1, which is what you want it to be, and then you're going to hit OK. And what Studio One's going to do, here's the project page. Okay, we're going to update the mastering file. Here's the name of the song. Okay, and as you can see over here, it already drops in, and this little LED here is red. When it's red, it means that it hasn't been updated with the latest mix that you have in your song file. So you have to click OK. And as you're going to see now over here, it's going to mix down a WAV file and drop it into the project page. And this whole process is going to take about 1.5 minutes. The song is about 4 minutes long, so it's about 3 or 4 times faster than real time. You can see it down here. It's 2.7 times faster than real time. So this will take a second. So while this is kind of going on, again, you want to make sure that your pre-master file, your WAV file, has enough headroom, again -5 to -7 dB, to give you enough headroom in mastering to be able to add some punch and some volume to this so you're not clipping. That's the first thing you want to remember. And just like what we talked about in the mixing videos where we said, the key to a really good mix is getting it right at the source when you record the instruments to begin with. It makes mixing a hell of a lot easier. Same goes for mastering. If you want a good master, an easy time mastering, and where you do things very subtly just to put a little bit of polish on the track, you want the song to be mixed really well. I mean, I guess that goes without saying, but I feel sometimes I hear mastered stuff by people at times, and I could tell that the song wasn't mixed well, or they try to fix the mix and mastering. And although there are some things you can fix, you don't want to go into it with that approach. You want the song to be mixed and sound as good as it possibly can, obviously, before you try to master it. So what we're going to do in mastering is a little light EQ, maybe a little light compression, and some limiting. That's all mastering really is, EQ, compression, and limiting for the most part. And you want to do it sparingly. If you really have to do some major EQ moves to make the song sound correct, then you probably didn't mix it right to begin with. So just keep that in mind as we move forward. So this is just about done. Okay, so it's saying updated one mastering file. Okay, so we're going to click OK, and here it is right here. So here's our mastering. Here's the track, and I'll just open this up a little bit, and we could play it back here for a second. You can hear it. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to set my outputs up correctly. The one thing that I noticed about Studio One is if you have your outputs on your interface for your song file doesn't necessarily set to a certain set of outputs, the project doesn't follow it. You have to it defaults to outputs 1 and 2. My outputs on my interface are 17, 18. So I always have to do that when I first bring in a new project. But so sorry about that. So here we go. So here's the beginning of this track.
I'm wandering, I'm stumbling around, can't find my way home.
Okay, so up here you can see you have the frequency representation of the song. It's like a big EQ graph showing you how all the see how the EQing is, and if you have any real big peaks or dips across your frequency spectrum. Down here you have your meters, your RMS and your peak levels, which are represented over here. Okay, and as you can see, it's very conservative. I play this back even at the largest chorus here. So you can see in white here, that's your RMS level. Our RMS level is around negative 13 dB. Our peak levels in the light blue here, those were around a -6. We want our RMS level to be around a -8. So we're going to add quite a bit of limiting to this to kind of bring up the volumes to a commercial standard volume, if you will, commercially, so it can compete with a commercial recording. It's the best way to say it. So again, I mix at a conservative level to give me enough headroom to do that. So here's the song. And as you can see up here now, this LED is turned from red to blue because we Studio One went in, mixed down the file, brought the latest mix into your project page. If you go back and make any changes to that mix, which I'm going to show you in a second how you can do that so easily here, it'll update this again for you. Let me explain. So right here, this is blue. Now let's say we were listening to this and we said, you know, the bass guitar could be a little bit louder. In the old days, when you were using, say, any other DAW, you would have to have a separate mastering program. And what you would do is you would mix your song, mix it down to a true track wave, open up a second program, import the wave file, kind of like what we're doing here. You listen back, oh geez, I want to raise the bass a little bit. Bass is not loud enough. What would you have to do? You'd have to close the mastering program, reopen up your DAW, make your change, remix down a two-track mix, another wave file, import it back into your mastering program, and start the process all over again. So there's a lot of extra steps. It can be done, but it's kind of a pain in the ass, right? So what Studio One has done so brilliantly is they've linked the two things together, the recording piece of the song in the DAW along with the mastering section, which is the project page, which is where we are right now. So now we want to go ahead and make that change, and we want to let's say raise the bass level like we just talked about. Bass is not loud enough. We want to raise the bass in the track and then move on with our mastering. So here's how you do it in Studio One, which I really love. Really easy. So you come up here to this little wrench, okay? Click on that little wrench icon, and it brings you back to your song file page. And okay, here we are on the bass track. We want to raise it up a little bit. Let's raise it up a couple of dB. Good enough. Okay, we raised the bass, and now we have to get this new mix, because we made a change, back into the mastering section, into the project page. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we save this change. So you can either go File, Save, or as I did, is I created a macro, and on my macro toolbar, Save button. Okay, now it's saved, right? So now we have to head back over to the project page, which is right here. Click on this button. And as you can see, our LED has gone from blue to red. What does that mean? What that means is that this file, this song file that we had in here prior to the change of the bass guitar, is not the latest version of the song anymore, because we just made a change to the bass. We saved that change, and the project page is telling us that you want to continue mastering this. It's not the latest mix. So do you want the latest mix? And the answer to that is obviously yes, we want the latest mix, right? So if we were to click on that little red button, now it's going to go ahead back to the song page, and it is going to mix down the new version, or the updated version of this mix, which had the bass guitar raised a couple of dB. Okay, so that's the beauty of it. So, and you could do this as many times as you need to. So let's say we bring this song in and we're listening back, and now we go, you know what? The background vocal needs to come up. You would do the same thing. You would click on the little wrench. You would bring you back into this page here. You'd make your adjustments to your mix. You always have to save it first. Then you would head back over to the project button up here in the top right hand corner, go back to the project page, and you will see that again, the little LED is going to be red. Again, every time you make a change, that LED goes from blue to red. Red means you don't have the latest version of the mix in your project page. You click on the little red button like we did, and it'll bring us right back here, and it'll go ahead and it will mix down the latest version, and it will replace the WAV file in the project page with the new updated version. That saves a ton of time when you're mastering. which is a huge advantage. And I think probably the single best feature of Studio One, this whole DAW, is the fact that they integrated mastering with it. There's a lot of great things about it. I have a video on YouTube talking about the 15 things I like about Studio One. And there's others way past 15 now that I've used the program another 3 or 4 months. But I think the single biggest selling feature of Studio One Pro is the fact that you get the mastering integrated in with the recording side of a DAW. No other DAW does that to this point, as far as I know. And again, it makes mastering and mixing and changing things in your mix to update your mastering file very, very simple. So that's just my opinion for what it's worth, everybody. So, okay, so now it's updated, one mastering file, click OK. So now, again, this is blue, right? Went from red to blue. Why? Because we got the latest version of this, okay? So now we could take a listen back quickly and see, do we like our bass? Let's take a listen.
I dream of green pastures.
Okay, bass is a little bit more present. Not much. I only raised it a dB or so because I kind of liked it where it was before that example. So anyway, that's how you update your project, your project page with the new and latest and greatest mix, and how easy it is to go back and make a change and then update things. Very, very quick, very simple. So now let's talk about mastering quickly. What is mastering? As I said a little earlier, mastering is really 3 things. It puts the polish on the mix. It's the final step. It makes gives you that sheen, gives you that polish, gives you that finished sonic quality that a commercial recording has. It's not a mix, or excuse me, a mastering cannot fix a bad mix, as I said earlier. The mix has to be right in order for the mastering to really be effective. Yes, there are some things that you can do with EQ to kind of fix things a little bit here and there, and we'll do a little bit of EQing in this example. But for the most part, you want to have the mix solid. You want to be really, really happy with the mix, the balance and everything before you try to master. So again, I can't say that enough. It's just like you can't fix a bad recording and mixing. You can fix a few things, but overall, if the recording at the source isn't right, the mix is going to be more difficult. It's not going to sound as professional. Same thing with mastering. If you want the master to really sound as good as it possibly can, you have to have a solid mix. So we use basically 3 tools in mastering: EQ, compression, and limiting. Limiting brings up the volume of the track to a commercial standard volume. And again, that's right around RMS levels, around -8 to -10 dB. That's a nice, healthy master. You can debate and argue whether you should make it as loud as you possibly can. I think -8 to -10 dB is still a real healthy, loud master, but not crushing the hell out of it to where it's so damn loud that it's almost on the verge of distortion. So it's a little more conservative, but it's still a real healthy master. And again, EQ and compression. So how do I go about that? So I'm going to show you a few different plugins, again, keeping in the spirit of using third-party plugins, which kind of ties back into my last video series where we mixed the song Fences with the Home Studio Trainer and Johnny Geib. This is a different track, but we're going to keep on the spirit of using some third-party plugins. So what's great, again, about the mastering is that you can have, we're just mastering one song here, but obviously you can have as many songs here as you wanted. If you're mastering a whole album, you would just keep importing your WAV files, and it would just kind of, it would just kind of line up in this bank over here, one song file at a time, and it would display on your timeline down here, and you'd be able to shuffle them and rearrange them if you had more than one track. In each song, you have a set of inserts where you could put inserts like EQ and compression, and you have a master bus, just like you do in your master, in your song file. You have a master out. This is kind of the same thing. You have a master out where you could put inserts or effects on the master fader. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is going to add a little bit of EQ to our first insert here. So we're going to click on the browse button, and we're going to go to one of my favorite mastering EQ plugins, the Universal Audio Pultec Pro. So we're just going to drag it in here. And the mastering part of this program is just like the recording piece. You just drag and drop stuff from your browser to your insert bank, which is really nice. So now the thing about EQ and mastering, because I mixed this track myself, I feel like the EQ is pretty much where it needs to be. If I was and I'm not going to do a lot of EQ here. This is going to be used more as a tone coloring type of an EQ, and I'll explain in a second. When I'm mastering stuff that maybe I didn't mix, I may use a different type of EQ. I may have to, again, maybe do a little bit more EQing than I typically would on something I mixed myself, to make things sound a little bit better, a little bit more polished. In this case, because I'm pretty happy with the EQ tonality of the song, I just want to color it a little bit, maybe give it a little bit more presence. And the Pultec Pro by Universal Audio is an excellent EQ for that. It's an emulation of an old Pultec hardware EQ, which is, again, one of the most sought after hardware EQs. It's been around for probably 40 plus years, much like the 1176 compressor or the LA2A. The Pultec Pro EQ is been in major studios for many, many years. It's been on thousands of commercial records that you all know and love. I'm sure some of them, if not the majority of them, somewhere in those recordings have a Pultec EQ in there. And what's great about the old vintage stuff by Universal Audio is that it's not just, it just doesn't look like the thing, but like the hardware, but it actually sounds like it, and it emulates all the transistors and all the tube sound that colors the signal as it passes through it. So the way I use this particular EQ is I keep it on the default setting, and I actually don't add any frequency boosting or take away any frequency boosting. I basically just run the signal through it just to give it that little bit of extra presence and tone, and an extra tone or coloring to the tone that the Pultec is famous for. So just running the signal through it without boosting or cutting anything adds a little bit of something to the sounds. And let's demonstrate it here. So I'm going to bypass it here for a second. I'm going to play back the loudest section of the song, which is really the end chorus here. And then after a couple of bars, I'll engage it and listen for the mid-range and kind of the top end where it just kind of lifts up a little bit and kind of makes things a little bit more present, if you will. So let's take a quick listen.
Yes, I know I'm already there. Yes, I know I'm already there. Yes, I know I'm already there.
So I don't know if you can hear that. If you're listening to this on a good set of studio monitors or headphones, you should be able to hear. It's an obvious difference to me sitting here in the control room, how the mid-range and the top end just get a little bit more present, a little bit more bright, a little more full, a little more in your face. Doesn't compromise the bottom end. It just kind of opens up the song a little bit, opens up the tonality of it a little. So that's what the Pultec Pro does, and it's a really nice, subtle. It's not night and day, but it's a subtle little lift where it doesn't sound like it's EQ'd, and that's what happens when you pass signal through an old hardware Pultec without even boosting or cutting anything. And if you could see here, although everything here, all the boosting is all at zero. Nothing is boosted, nothing is cut. It's just passing the signal through. So let me play that one more time. I'll just back it up a little bit. I will bypass it, and then I'll turn it on and listen again for the mid-range and the top ends.
Yes, I know I'm already there. Yes, I know I'm
So as you can hear, when it gets to the word there at the end of the chorus, you can just hear it get fuller and more present in your face. So that's what the Pultec does. So that's what I'm using for this particular track. Just passing the signal through it, not doing any real EQing, so to speak, just coloring the sound. Okay, so that's my first insert. I'm going to pin it and leave it up here. Now the second thing I do before we get to limiting and some compression, which will be on the master, is I'm going to add what is known as maybe a stereo widener, stereo enhancer. This particular plugin by Universal Audio isn't really a stereo widener. Let me get it up here and I'll explain what it kind of does, but it kind of feels like that. This is called the, excuse me, let me find it here. Here it is, Precision Case Stereo. Okay, this is by the famous, this plugin was designed along with Bob Katz, who's a famous mastering engineer. If you know anything about recording and mastering, and if you've been doing this a while, you've probably heard the name Bob Katz. And he has a couple of great books out on mastering. He worked with Universal Audio to design this plugin. And what this is, it's called, it's called an ambience recovery plugin. And what it really is intended to do, and you can go to Universal Audio's website, they have a trailer video and kind of explains all the nuts and bolts of what it really does. But what it kind of does is it gives the illusion that the stereo field's a little bit wider. But really what it does, it's not really a stereo widener. What it really does is it takes the ambience, the reverb that's already in the track, and it kind of enhances that a little bit. And by doing that, it gives the illusion that you have a wider stereo field and kind of spread things out a little bit. So it kind of gives a lift again to the top end and a little bit more present without becoming harsh, and it kind of feels like it spreads it out just a hair. So when you bypass, and we'll do this where I'll turn it on and off, like I did with the Pultec Pro EQ. But when it's bypassed, the vocal kind of comes right up the middle. Even though the guitars in the track are panned left and right, they feel more towards the center. As soon as I engage this plugin, it feels like the guitars spread out a little bit. The vocal has a little bit more presence. It sits a little bit above the mix like it should. And it kind of, again, gives a little more polish to it. So I use a preset on this particular plugin, which I don't normally do on plugins, but with this plugin, I love this preset called Warm Ambience. Okay. And it has and again, I'm not going to get into the details of this plugin. That would take me too long, but you could go to Universal Audio's website and check it out. But it has an EQ on here to EQ the ambience. It has a deep button, a wide button, and an ambience recovery kind of a button, which is all engaged. And again, what this is going to do is kind of just lift up the track a little bit, spread it out just a hair. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bypass it, and then I'm going to kick it in like we did before. Now the EQ is already on. The EQ is still on. We got that engaged. So we're just going to turn on the Case Stereo by Universal Audio. So let's take a listen to this chorus again.
I'm already there. Yes, I know I'm already there. Yes, I know I'm already there. Yes, I know I'm already.
Okay, so again, I don't know how well you can hear that. It really depends on the type of speakers you're listening to this back on. If you're listening on a good set of headphones, that's probably where you're going to notice it the most. I'm going to back it up again, and on the word there at the end of the chorus is where I'll engage it, and you can hear all those harmonies kind of just lift up and spread out a little bit. Again, it's subtle. It's not this, oh my God, listen to Night and Day. If I didn't point it out to you, you probably wouldn't be able to hear it. But it's that little extra flavor, kind of just like with the Pultec. It just adds a little bit of polish, a little bit of icing on the cake, if you will, to give the track a little more glue and to polish off the sound. And that's really what mastering does. So again, listen to the word there, already there. That's when I'll engage the plugin, and you'll hear kind of things lift up and just spread out just a tiny bit. So let's take a listen again. Okay, so I don't know if you can hear that. Hopefully you can. It does make a difference. Now you can increase that effect, if you will, or that you can make it sound more obvious by just taking this knob here and kind of turning it up a little bit. But you want to be careful. You turn this up too much and it gives it kind of a weird phasey kind of a thing, and it kind of makes things sound really kind of hollow. You don't really want to move this way too much. Maybe a dB or two, and that's about it. Normally I put it around 1.5 dB. I increase it, gives enough of a lift. So let's try that again now that I've increased it a little bit. And what I'll do is when I play this, I'll kind of exaggerate this and turn it up quite a bit. You can kind of hear what it does. So here we go. Okay, so as you can hear, hopefully, when you turn this way up, it kind of spreads things out a little bit too much. It gets a little bit too ambient, and it kind of sounds unnatural. So you want to be careful about that. But when you turn it all the way down to -20, you can hear everything kind of comes back to the middle, and it kind of gets very narrow, almost mono sounding in a way. But as you start to creep it up and get a little bit past 0 dB, it kind of spreads it out and lifts it up pretty nice. So it's a nice little effect. Again, it's kind of like a stereo widener, but not really. If you don't have this plugin, a nice stereo widener or enhancer could help a little bit. Again, if you want to do it very sparingly, you don't want to put a stereo enhancer on and completely spread the thing out, max it out. It may sound good in your control room, but when you play that back in a car, play that back on a mono source, it's going to sound really weird. So you want to be careful. Again, we're just trying to do things subtly here to kind of just lift the track up and kind of spread it out. So that's the Universal Audio K-Stereo Ambience Recovery by Bobcast. Go over to Universal Audio, check it out. If you don't have Universal Audio plugins, poke around their website. Again, I use probably 75% of my mixing I use with Universal Audio stuff. I just love the old vintage stuff and the way they've modeled it. It does a great job. It doesn't mean that you can't do mastering with Presonus plugins. Of course you can. And maybe I'll do another video with that where we use the stock compressor and the stock limiter to show you that you can, but I'm just showing you this is what I typically would use. So those are those two plugins. So now the last plugin we're going to use, I'm going to put on the master out. We're going to use some compression and some limiting. And we're going to use another third party plugin by Slate Digital. And I use a lot of Slate Digital stuff in my mixing videos. If you go back and check those out, we're going to use something called the FGX Mastering Compressor / Limiter. May take a second here to load up. Okay, so this is by Slate Digital, and this is really two plugins in one, and they can be used together or independently. You have the FG compressor, which is the top section here, which is turned on and off by this power button. You can see this, the LED and the kind of the meter light go off, and the FG level, which is really the limiter. And what I love about this particular compressor / limiter is it's very transparent, meaning that you can normally when you put a lot of limiting and you're trying to raise a track maybe 8 or 10 dB, because again, if you mix at a conservative level, to bring that RMS level up to a commercial level in volume, you put a lot of limiting on it, a lot of gain. And with typical limiters, when you start to do that, you kind of crush the dynamics to the point where all the punch and all the detail that you had in the mix, you kind of lose because you're squashing it. A limiter is nothing more than just a big old compressor that just has a wall, if you will, and when the signal hits that wall, it kind of crushes it down and it kind of squeezes some of the life out of it. And you can, if you try to do too much limiting, get more of a pumping type of a feeling, kind of like you're over compressing something. And that kind of ruins the dynamics of the track. What's nice about this Slate Digital plugin is it doesn't do that. It's very transparent. It still retains all the punch and all the detail and all the dynamics you had in the mix, but being able to bring the volume up to the level that you need to, and keep everything kind of intact. And again, you could go to Slate Digital's website. They have a whole video on how to use this and how it was made and what it was intended and how it was designed and all that stuff. That can probably explain it a hell of a lot better than me. I could just tell you how to use it. So anyway, this is again has two sections. Now we're going to do both compression, a little bit of compression and limiting. But if you didn't need to compress on your on your master, you could just simply turn this off and just use it as a limiter. Or if you were just going to compress, you can always turn off the limiter and just use it as a compressor. We're going to do both. So again, I start with the preset called Stevens Mastering Hard Settings as a kind of a starting point. And let's talk about the compressor first. So over here you have an attack, you have a release, you have a ratio. This is set at 2:1. And that's typically where I want to compress. 1:1, 2:1, not much more than 2:1. I don't want to do a lot of over compression because, as you remember in my mixing videos, if you watch those, I always mix into a master bus compressor. Typically it's the Universal Audio SSL bus compressor. So I've already compressed the track. I use compression throughout the individual tracks, and then I also do a little bit of compression on the way out on the master bus. So when it comes to mastering, it doesn't need a ton of compression, just a little bit, just to catch the peaks. Most of the compression is done in the mixing, so we're only going to do light compression. And then here's our threshold, which as we dial up the threshold, we'll start to see the meter compress. The signal start to compress, sorry. Down here on the limiter, right now we have 0 gain. We have it turned all the way down, okay? And we have what's called a low punch detail knob, a low punch knob, a detail knob, which is really the low end and the high end. Again, as you start to compress things, as you start to limit things, you can dial up the detail to give a little bit more high end, and you could dial up the low end to make sure that you don't lose that punch that you had before you tried to master or compress or level the track. And then you have what's called the dynamic perception knob. Again, you can fiddle around with this. And again, go out to Stephen Slate's website, slatedigital.com, and check it out. And it'll explain in detail how to use all of these. This video would be way too long if I tried to do that. Want to make sure your dithering's on, so you always want to dither when you're doing mastering. And this button is probably the most important button on the limiter. This is called a constant gain monitoring. And whenever we're going to master, you always want to engage this. Default, it's disengaged. You want to enable this, you want to engage it. And the reason for that is what it's going to happen is as we add more gain to this track to bring up the RMS levels to where we want them to be, we don't want the track to appear to be louder, because if it's louder, physically louder, and you're hearing the volume get louder in your monitors, in your headphones, you're not really going to be able to hear the effect of the compressor. You want to be able to hear the effect of compressor with the levels at the same volume. So by engaging this button, what it does is it allows, no matter how much gain you punch into this, you're not going to hear that gain until that volume difference, until you disengage this, and you're going to do that at the very end. That gives us the ability to kind of mess around with our compressor settings and hear the effect of what the compressor is actually doing to the track, if that makes any sense. So it's kind of gain staging your plugin, which I talk about in the mixing videos as well. So if you don't know what that is, go back and check that out. But basically, when you put a plugin on a track or on a source, you want the enabled and the disabled at the same volume level. So when you enable the plugin, you can hear what effect it's having, and you just don't trick yourself into thinking, oh wow, as soon as I engage the plugin, everything gets super loud. Louder is better. It sounds better. That's kind of tricking your ears into thinking that just because it's louder, it's better. You want to hear just the effect of what the compressor is doing. So hopefully that makes sense. So you want to engage this. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to play this back quickly at the highest point of the song, which is that last chorus there. And we're going to see where our RMS, where our levels are, and we're going to crank up the gain. So at the highest peak, we're running around a -8 to -10 RMS level, to give us that nice, healthy commercial master sound. So here we go. And again, you're not going to hear the difference. You're only going to see it on the meters because we have this button engaged like I just talked about. Okay, so as you can see here, the green bars are the RMS level. We are running around a -15, -13. We want to bring it up to about a -8, -10. So just keep that in mind here. So let's play that back again. Okay, so now what we've done is we've turned this up to about 8. We've added about 8 dB of gain. So at the highest point of the song, we're running around a -8, -9 dB RMS level. And that's where we want to be. That's a good, healthy master. And again, you didn't hear the difference. You just saw it on the meters because of this button being engaged. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of compression to this. Again, 2-to-1 ratio. I'm going to start to dial the threshold up a little bit, just so the needle is just kissing. We're not even going to do 1 dB of compression. And the reason for that is because, again, I've already compressed this at the mixing stage through a master bus. I don't want to keep squashing this track. I just want it to catch the peaks, you know, where maybe he hits the snare a little too hard. Just to grab it and pull it back just a little bit. So you're going to see this needle move maybe a 0.5 dB. That's all we're really going to compress here, okay? And then what we're going to do is once we do that, and we have our compression where we want it, then we're going to disengage this button, and all of a sudden the track's going to become a lot louder, and it's going to come up to the commercial volume level. So let's take a listen here. Okay, so sorry this keeps closing on and off. It's because I'm using this a 32-bit plugin and a 64-bit platform, and I have to use a program called JBridge in order to get this to work. And when you click on and off it, you have to keep opening the interface. So again, I apologize. But anyhow, you saw that I dialed back the gain a little bit because I felt it was getting a little too hot. I don't want it at the highest points. I don't want it to be above about a -8. So I dialed that back a little bit, so we're not limiting too much. And again, turned up the threshold just a hair. You could see without even turning up the threshold, the needle was starting to kiss. We were getting about a 0.5 dB of compression. That's about all I want. So now what I'm going to do is I will play it back, and I will shut this on and off the compressor so you can kind of hear the difference. Again, it is super subtle because I'm not doing a lot of compression. But what you're listening for is really the bottom end, the bass guitar, the kick drum. You should feel that get a little more present, a little bit tighter. Again, the whole track will just feel a little bit more glued, if that makes any sense. But it's really, really subtle. If you're listening to this on earbuds or a laptop, you may not even hear the difference. But I'll just try to turn it on and off just so hopefully you can hear the difference. I can hear it in here, but depending on the system you're listening to this back on, you may not be able to. So let me play that back again and just kind of flip this on and off a little bit so you could kind of see the difference, or hear the difference, I should say. So let's take a listen.
Yes, I know I'm already there. I'm already there. Yes, I know I'm already there. Yes, I know I'm already
Okay, so hopefully you're able to hear the difference. Again, it's very subtle. And again, you saw I dialed back the limiting just a little bit more. I don't want it to get too hot and heavy there. So we dialed that back even more, but we still have a nice healthy master. We're compressing about a 0.5 dB here, 2-to-1 ratio. Just kind of glues the track together. It's not real obvious. It's very subtle. Okay, and that's all I do. So now what I'll do is I'll lower the volume a little bit overall, and then I'm going to disengage this button here, and you're going to hear the track get louder because now we got the limiter full blast. You're going to hear where the volume goes from where it is to where it's going to be once we engage this or disengage this button. And that's going to give us our final level, our mastered level for this particular song. So let's take a listen to that.
Yes, I know I'm
Okay, and that's it. So that's kind of where we're at now with our 3 plugins. Got an EQ, the stereo recovery plugin, or ambient recovery plugin, I should say, and the compressor limiter. So now what you can do here is I would always put a little bit of a fade out of the track here, so it fades off nice. And then also at the beginning, you want to make sure that you got to have a nice little fade in so you don't have any clicks and pops. Let's just take a quick listen. Okay, that's good. So if you don't, sometimes just like in mixing, when you have a region or an event here, you want to kind of just fade it in, fade it out so you don't get any clicks and pops. So it kind of comes in smooth and kind of goes out smooth on the ends. So that would be my final master sound. And it would be ready for now to be either burned to a CD and or sent out as a MP3 or a WAV. So how you do that, if you have a CD here, you would put a CD in your CD player and actually click the word burn, and that would allow you to burn it to a CD. Or you can do a digital release, which is what we're going to do here. So you could choose the format that you want. We're going to do it as, let's say, a high-res MP3. If I was going to send it off to a client at 320 bits at 44.1. We're not going to have the track number. The artist name is going to be there. Oh, and let me let me cancel this. Let me show you one other thing. If you click this little down arrow, you could put all the information about the artist. You know, you could change if you have artwork for the album, you could change that just by clicking on it. That's kind of my default icon, but you can change that by just clicking this, and we could go out to, let's see, let me put my, my other logo on here. Oh, there. So I could just take this one, and there it goes, updates the logo. But if this was a client's project and you wanted to put their album cover or whatever, you could put that here. You could put the songwriter, the composer, what kind of music is it, the year. So all that data will be embedded on the track, which is really nice. It makes things really easy to do. So you just close that. Now we're ready for a digital release. We click on digital. We're going to have the artist name. You can have the track number show up if you want it. I typically don't do that. You could publish it to either your SoundCloud account if you have one, or your Nibbit account. I'm not going to do either right now. I'm going to say do not publish, but it's going to be an MP3 at 320, and you're going to pick where on the hard drive you want it. And I'm going to put it in the master folder here. So it's here. You're going to hit open, and then you're just going to hit OK. And now it is going to mix down the MP3, the final mastered version. And that's about it. So that's how you master a track in Studio One 2.5. Again, it wasn't a ton of stuff being done, just some EQ, a little bit of ambient recovery or stereo enhancing, depending on how you want to look at it, and some compression and some limiting. And that's basically all I do. It's really subtle. There's not a lot really going on in the mastering process because of the way it was prepared and mixed. So again, keep that in mind. If there's any other questions that you guys have about this process, please email me at visionrecordingstudios@yahoo.com. Also, please be sure to visit our new website, visionmixstudios.com. It's our mixing and mastering services and our training for aspiring audio engineers. We do some customized training for them as well. Also, go to the homestudiotrainer.com. Check out Johnny and what he's doing over there. He's doing a great job over there, especially with the Studio One Presonus stuff. He really kind of caters to that product line, and it's wonderful products because I use them myself. And that's it for now. So again, also visit visionrecordingstudios.com. So thanks again for watching, and I hope to hear all from you soon. Leave a comment. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go to our Facebook page. Give us a like. Let me know what you guys think of these videos, and if you want me to continue making them for you, or what kind of topics you want me to kind of go over. I kind of just wing this and do this off the top of my head, so it's not the most professional presentation, but hopefully it's been helpful to some people. And if you have any questions, again, shoot me an email, and I would be more than happy to help you. So till next time, this is Dave signing off. Talk to you soon.